The night before the wedding, I had to take a last-minute business trip to Japan. Before I left, my fiancé Ethan promised that he would postpone the wedding rehearsal. But shortly after, I saw a post from the wedding company on social media. The decorations looked familiar, yet the bride and groom weren't us. I immediately called Ethan to confront him. He sounded careless, even impatient. "They were just being nice, helping you check the wedding setup," he said. "Why are you making such a big deal out of it?" Furious, I bought an early ticket home. But before I left, I accidentally overheard Ethan talking with his best friend. "Olivia has chased me for years," he said. "She proposed to me 99 times. I couldn't keep refusing her." "What about Emma?" his friend asked. "She came back from overseas for you." "I'll make it up to her," Ethan replied casually. My blood turned cold. I felt every drop of it rush backward through my veins, but I didn't have the strength to confront him then. 3 days later, the wedding went on as planned, except I never showed up. Instead, I agreed to my parents' arranged marriage and got a marriage certificate with another man. Ethan thought that once I left him, he would lose his whole world. But under the cherry blossom trees, anyone standing there could look beautiful. My love burned passionately, no matter who it was given to. In the video, the grand wedding was taking place. The groom was kissing the bride amid cheers and laughter from the guests. It was the very wedding I had spent a month carefully preparing, yet the bride was someone else. The way Ethan looked at Emma with such affection and adoration made my heart ache so badly I could hardly breathe. He had once promised me that if I proposed to him 99 times, he would marry me. But now, everything I had done, all my years of devotion, seemed like nothing but a cruel joke. I forced myself to pack my luggage, holding back tears. When I finally packed the last box, laughter and noise drifted in from the entryway. "Wedding night, wedding night." Ethan's friends were shouting. Emma, wearing the second evening gown I had designed myself, was leaning shyly against Ethan's chest, her face blushing as she smiled sweetly. My palms throbbed from how hard I was clenching them. The crowd pushed Ethan and Emma toward the bedroom, but when they reached the door, they suddenly froze, because I was standing there. All the laughter stopped at once. Ethan looked at me in shock, then frowned, clearly displeased. "Why did you come back early?" he asked, still holding Emma by the waist. Pain twisted through my chest, but I forced myself not to lose control. "If I hadn't come back early," I said coldly, "how else would I have seen your wedding night celebration?" Ethan's expression darkened. He clearly hadn't expected me to embarrass him in front of everyone. "I told you, Emma was just helping check the wedding details." "Why are you being so petty?" "Petty?" I laughed bitterly. "So now even the wedding night is part of the details she's helping me check?" The fury I'd been holding in finally erupted in a scream. "Ethan, it's my fault," Emma said softly, stepping out of his arms. "I shouldn't have stayed. I just wanted to help you, but I didn't think I'd make Olivia upset. I'll leave right now." She looked fragile and pitiful, more wrong than I did. As expected, her act stirred everyone's sympathy. "Come on, Olivia, we were just joking," one of Ethan's friends said. "Why take it so seriously?" "Yeah, don't make things hard for her," another chimed in. "Ethan already agreed to marry you. Are you that afraid he'll run off?" "You can't keep a man by holding on to him that tightly," someone else laughed. My fingers trembled. Over the years, I had endured endless humiliation for chasing after Ethan. Behind my back, they called me his lapdog. I put up with all of it, and every time I told Ethan, he would brush it off, saying, "They're my brothers. Don't take it so seriously." But I never imagined, in their eyes, I wasn't even worth as much as Emma, the woman who had once betrayed Ethan. "Olivia, you owe Emma an apology," Ethan said coldly. "She stood for hours today, helping you rehearse the ceremony and even twisted her ankle. What gives you the right to chase her out the moment you arrive?" Watching Ethan protect Emma so earnestly made my heart go cold. Emma had only stood for a few hours, and yet Ethan felt so much pity for her. But when I had spent countless sleepless nights and nearly exhausted myself preparing for this wedding, had Ethan ever shown me even a trace of concern? "Forget it, Ethan," Emma said softly, tugging his sleeve with a pitiful look. "Don't let this ruin your relationship. After all, your wedding is in just 3 days. Seeing me remain silent, Emma's voice trembled as she continued. No, she needs to apologize to me today. Otherwise, who knows if the wedding in 3 days will even happen. Ethan, knowing how much this wedding meant to me, used his words like a threat. The people around us looked at me with disdain. Of course they did. A woman who had proposed 99 times would never give up easily, right? I gave a bitter smile. Then, according to you, I said quietly, cancel the wedding. At my words, Ethan let out a low laugh, full of disbelief. You? Cancel it? Olivia, you have nothing. Who else would even want you besides me? He paused for a moment, then added, tomorrow we're hosting a welcome party for Emma. You'll apologize to her in front of everyone. Publicly. After that, Ethan scooped Emma up in his arms and walked out without looking back. Just before they disappeared from sight, I saw the triumphant smile on Emma's face. Back then, for the sake of so-called true love, I had given up my identity as the daughter of a wealthy family to be with Ethan. I even proposed to him 99 times just to prove to my parents that I had chosen the right man. But now, looking at everything that had happened, my so-called love felt nothing but childish and pathetic. That very night, I called my father. Dad, I said, my voice steady, I agree to the arranged marriage you proposed. My father's excitement was obvious through the phone. Moments later, he sent me a contact on WeChat. After I added him, a single message appeared on my screen. I'll be waiting for you. The next morning, when I was carrying my luggage out of the apartment, Emma appeared. She glanced at the suitcase in my hand, her lips curling into a mocking smile. So this is your plan? She sneered. Play hard to get and make Ethan come running back to you? Let me tell you something, he doesn't care about you at all. As she spoke, she deliberately tugged down the collar of her blouse, revealing faint red marks across her skin, clear evidence of passion. I turned away, disgusted, but then she played an audio recording. Ethan. Her voice in the recording was teasing and intimate. Do you treat your fiancé like this too? She's so stiff and dull. How could she ever compare to you? Then came the sounds of soft laughter and breathless moans. Ethan had once told me that he was physically averse to intimacy with women, that he didn't enjoy physical affection. I had believed him. I had been careful never to touch him unless he initiated it, waiting patiently for him to be ready, even avoiding kisses so he wouldn't feel pressured. But the man in that recording wasn't the same Ethan I knew. He was passionate, hungry, and unrestrained. As my face turned pale, Emma's satisfaction was unmistakable. She locked her phone screen and smiled. Oh, right. Ethan gave me a gift, a charm for eternal love. He said it would make sure I'd never leave him. My eyes burned as I saw the charm in her hand. It was the same love talisman I had climbed over 3,000 temple steps to pray for. Ethan had told me once that he wasn't blessed by love, that he was destined to be alone. I had begged for that charm with all my heart, hoping to prove to him that he was loved, that fate had not abandoned him. I reached out instinctively to snatch it back. Even if Ethan didn't want it, I couldn't let something so sacred, something I had prayed for with every ounce of sincerity, be desecrated by another woman. But before I could touch her, Emma suddenly stumbled backward. Tears instantly welled up in Emma's eyes as she cried, Miss Song, I know I'm not worthy of Ethan. I know my place. Before I could respond, Ethan stepped through the doorway, his expression cold and full of contempt. Olivia, Emma came here out of kindness to invite you to the welcome dinner, and this is how you treat her? I watched as Ethan wrapped his arm protectively around Emma, his eyes filled with disgust when they landed on me. For a moment, I didn't even have the strength to argue. Ethan, I asked quietly, my voice trembling, is this how you trample on my love for you? I pointed to the love talisman still in Emma's hand. Ethan's expression froze for a second before he said carelessly, It's just a piece of paper. If you really love me, what difference does it make whether you have it or not? The words caught in my throat. I wanted to tell him right then that I didn't love him anymore, that my heart had long gone cold. But before I could speak, Emma suddenly let out a soft cry. Ethan, I think I twisted my back, she whimpered. Before she even finished, Ethan scooped her up in his arms without a backward glance at me. I stood there, numb, and began to gather my scattered belongings from the floor. That was when my phone rang. The message on the screen was from Ethan. You must come to tonight's welcome dinner. If you don't, I'll send your photos to everyone. My breath caught. The image displayed on the screen froze me in place. It was from our first night together. That night, Ethan had finally accepted my proposal and kissed me on his own. I thought he had finally opened up to me, that he no longer felt that so-called physical aversion toward women. In that moment of joy and foolish hope, I had given myself to him completely. But what I hadn't known was that the night I thought was precious and intimate had been secretly recorded, and now those photos were in his hands, handed to others like a weapon. Humiliation flooded through me, burning in my chest, but I knew I had no choice. I had to go to that dinner. No matter what, this had to end once and for all. When I arrived at the restaurant, the first thing I saw was Ethan's mother, Mrs. Cole, holding Emma's hand affectionately, her eyes full of warmth. Emma even called her mom, with a sweet smile. I remembered how hard I had tried to win Mrs. Cole's approval back when Ethan and I first started dating. No matter how polite or considerate I was, she had never once smiled at me the way she was smiling at Emma now. She had always insisted I call her Mrs. Cole, never Mom. As soon as she noticed me standing by the door, her face hardened. "What are you standing there for? Don't you know how to greet people? No wonder my son's mother still can't accept you. You have no manners at all." Ethan grabbed my arm roughly and dragged me forward. "If you had half of Emma's grace and tact, my mom wouldn't still be refusing to accept you," he said sharply, his tone full of disdain. At that moment, all I could think about were those stolen photos, the proof of my shame. Rage flared inside me, and I yanked my arm out of his grasp. Ethan's face darkened instantly, and Mrs. Cole's eyes filled with fury. "With your kind of background," Mrs. Cole snapped, "you should be grateful Ethan ever looked your way. And yet you dared to throw a tantrum in public? A daughter-in-law like you, our family can't afford to have one." The guests around us began to whisper, their eyes filled with judgment and contempt. Their stares made me feel like a foolish, unwanted outsider, a pitiful girl who didn't know her place. Emma stepped forward with her usual innocent act, her voice soft and full of false humility. "It's my fault," she said sweetly. "I must have upset Miss Song. Please don't be angry, Mrs. Cole, Ethan. Miss Song, thank you so much for coming to my welcome dinner." She reached out to take my hand affectionately, but I pulled away immediately, disgusted. Her eyes filled with tears as she looked pitifully up at Ethan. "Apologize to Emma," Ethan ordered coldly. Again. Always the same, apology after apology. Ever since Emma returned, I had been the one at fault for everything. When I was bedridden with a fever, Ethan was with Emma. When I tried my best to please his family, Ethan never once stood by my side. Yet after Emma came back, he accompanied her to visit each elder, giving them gifts with a smile. When I nearly broke my legs running around to prepare for our wedding, Ethan acted like a man with no responsibilities, hands-off, distant, indifferent. Ethan spent the next few days traveling everywhere with Emma. "Forget it, Ethan," she said sweetly near my ear again, her voice dripping with false innocence that made my stomach turn. I couldn't stand hearing her another second. Without thinking, I slapped him hard across the face. "Give me back the photos." Emma immediately fell into his arms, her expression full of feigned shock and innocence. "What photos? Miss Song, I know you're jealous of me, but you can't just hit people." I reached out, trying to grab Emma's phone. I knew there had to be messages between Ethan and me in there, proof of everything. But before I could touch it, Ethan's hand struck my face sharply. "You're unbelievable," he shouted. "Completely hopeless. You're going to apologize to Emma right here in front of everyone, or I swear the wedding is off." The same threat again. The first time, it had broken my heart. But now I just felt numb. I gave Ethan one last look, and another at the crowd who stood watching like it was all a show. "Emma," I said coldly, "expect to hear from my lawyer." Then I turned and walked out of the ballroom without a single glance back. Once I stepped outside the hotel, I hailed a cab straight to the airport. My phone kept ringing nonstop. I looked down at the messages flashing on the screen. I didn't know about the photos. Emma already apologized. Besides, you've heard her so many times, I'd say you're even now. Stop being so dramatic. I see Emma as a sister. We're family. Why can't you just let things go? Forget about the photo thing. I didn't reply. Instead, I blocked Ethan's number. As for Emma, I took screenshots of our entire conversation. If she dared to blackmail me, she'd better be ready to face the law. 3 days later, the wedding went on as planned. Everything had been rehearsed already, so no one seemed particularly excited. "Emma really knows how to have fun," one guest whispered. "Not like that other one, she blushed just from a kiss." "Yeah." Another laughed. "I wonder if she's that stiff in bed too. What a bore that must have been." Their mocking voices drifted through the air, loud enough for Ethan to hear. For some reason, irritation crawled up his spine. He remembered that people had gossiped about Olivia before, but now she was supposed to be his wife. He couldn't stand hearing others humiliate her, even if she wasn't there. Just as he was about to lose his temper, someone wrapped their arms around him from behind. "Ethan," Emma said softly, "Mom and Dad are calling you." Ethan frowned, gently pulling himself out of her embrace. "From now on," he said flatly, "you should call them Mr. and Mrs. Cole." Emma's smile stiffened for a moment, but she quickly covered it with a sweet, obedient look. "Of course," she said softly. Ethan walked over to where his parents were standing, only to be met with his mother's scolding voice. "The ceremony's about to start. Where is Olivia? Honestly, if she's going to be so irresponsible, maybe Emma should be the bride instead." "Let's just wait a little longer," Ethan said quietly. "She'll come." But deep down, unease gnawed at him. Ever since that day, Olivia hadn't replied to a single one of his messages. She had even blocked him completely. When he tried calling her, the number was disconnected. That was when Ethan realized, for the first time, that he knew nothing about Olivia at all. He didn't have her friends' or family's numbers, not even her father's contact. All those years she had chased after him, he had basked in her devotion without ever thinking to truly understand her. Now that she was gone, he had no idea where to even begin looking. Ethan quickly called his assistant. "Did you find out anything about Olivia's whereabouts?" he demanded. "Mr. Cole," the assistant replied nervously, "it seems Miss Song's travel records have been deliberately erased." They couldn't find anything. Her whereabouts had completely vanished. "Maybe Miss Song did it on purpose," the assistant said carefully. "Forget it," Ethan interrupted, though his tone betrayed a rare edge of anxiety. "She's just trying to make me worry. She'll definitely come today." But 3 hours passed, and still, there was no sign of me. The guests grew restless, whispering among themselves. Mr. Cole, his face dark with embarrassment, finally slammed his cane against the floor. "Enough. If she's not coming, then fine. Our family doesn't need a daughter-in-law like her anyway. Since Emma already rehearsed everything with you, you'll just marry her instead." Ethan tried to protest, but Emma leaned close, whispering softly, "Ethan, Olivia's doing this on purpose to make you angry. The more she tries to provoke you, the less you should let her win. If we just pretend to go through with the wedding, she's bound to show up." Ethan hesitated, then slowly relaxed. Remembering how deeply I had once adored him, he let himself be convinced by her words. When Emma finally put on the wedding dress and the officiant began to read the vows, Ethan's mind wandered. In his head, he suddenly saw me again, kneeling before him, holding a ring in my trembling hands, my voice full of sincerity. "Ethan, I love you. I promise to care for you and stay by your side forever. Will you marry me?" That final proposal, my 99th, I had even written 10,000 blessings by hand and hung them on a wishing tree, believing that love could conquer anything. "Ethan, it's your turn." Emma's voice pulled him back to the present. Ethan opened his mouth, but no words came out. His throat felt dry, his heart unbearably heavy. Finally, he lowered his head. "I'm sorry, Emma," he said quietly. "I can't do this." Back at my family's estate, my mother pulled me into her arms the moment I stepped through the door. For 5 long years, I had stayed away from home, all because I wanted to prove that even without wealth or status, I could still have true love. In the beginning, I worked every job I could find, just to pay tuition. That was when I found Ethan, drunk and passed out on the street. I brought him back to my tiny apartment, barely 10 square meters, and for a while, it felt like I had met someone who was just as lost as I was. At first, Ethan was gentle. He didn't mind my cramped little room. Every evening, he'd come pick me up from work, always on time. When I got sick, he cooked porridge himself, fumbling through recipes just to take care of me. But then things began to change. Maybe it started the day he heard that Emma had come back. Even now, when I think of it, A faint ache still lingers in my chest, though it's soon washed away by the joy of reuniting with my family. The preparations for my new engagement went smoothly. I didn't have to run around anymore to save money, nor stay up late designing my own dress. I thought this marriage, arranged by my parents, would proceed quietly, almost like an obligation I had accepted. But then, something unexpected happened. The next day, my mother took me to a grand estate that specialized in bridal couture. When we arrived, she smiled mysteriously and said she had something to take care of, then left me at the entrance. I didn't think much of it and walked inside alone. The moment I stepped in, I froze. In the center of the room stood a wedding gown, my design from college. It had been my competition entry, one I never finished because I couldn't afford the materials. I'd lost the chance to compete because of that. Beside the gown were little keepsakes, a small bear pin from the bakery where I once worked part-time, a box filled with loyalty cards from the tea shop I used to visit, and even sketches of my designs that I thought had been unsold. It turned out that all those years, the extra bonuses I earned, the designs I thought no one wanted, someone had been quietly helping me behind the scenes. "Olivia, it's been a long time." I turned around, startled. Standing there was Ryan, my senior from college, elegant, poised, and as kind-eyed as I remembered. "Ryan." "Why?" I asked softly, barely able to form the words. "Because you once said you wanted to live as an independent woman," he replied with a gentle smile. "I was afraid you'd think I was holding you back, so I never told you, but I've been watching, always from a distance." He stepped closer. "I know you don't want to be a pawn in your family's arrangements. If you don't want this marriage, I won't force you." The man's face was full of nervousness, while a gentle warmth flowed through my heart like a spring. "If I don't agree," I asked softly, teasing him on purpose, "does that mean you won't propose?" Ryan, usually so composed and elegant, immediately panicked, fumbling with his pockets as if caught off guard. After several attempts, he finally pulled out a small velvet box. Then, taking a deep breath, he knelt down on one knee before me. "Marry me," he said, his voice trembling yet sincere. "I don't want to keep caring for you from the shadows anymore. I want to protect you openly, proudly. Of course, you can say no. The Stone family will still continue working with the Song family. I'll still look after you quietly, just like before." My eyes stung, tears welling before I could stop them. I will," I whispered, cutting off his nervous rambling. Ryan's anxious eyes widened in surprise, lighting up with joy so pure it felt almost unreal, like he had just been handed the most precious treasure in the world. Love, it seemed, had always been within reach. I just never knew how to cherish it. Meanwhile, at the wedding that should have been mine, the groom had run away, leaving behind a replacement bride still standing there, humiliated. After leaving the hotel, Ethan rushed home, only to find that everything that had once belonged to me was gone. My clothes, my sketches, even my smallest keepsakes, all of it had disappeared. And in the garden, the tree I had once covered with 10,000 handwritten blessings, our proposal tree, now lay charred and gray, nothing but ashes in a forgotten corner. Seeing it, Ethan's chest tightened painfully. "Mr. Cole," his assistant called, rushing in. "I found something. Miss Song. She's not some poor orphan at all. She's actually the eldest daughter of the Song family." Ethan froze, the phone slipping slightly in his hand. He had always believed I was an ordinary girl with nothing, someone easy to control. But now, hearing that I was the heiress of one of the wealthiest families in the country, his entire world seemed to tilt. If once he could dominate me because I had nothing, now he didn't stand a chance. The Coles were powerful, yes, but nowhere near the influence of the Songs. "And there's more," the assistant continued cautiously. "It said the Song family is arranging a marriage alliance with the Stones." Ethan's mind went blank. The fact that I was the Song family's daughter already shocked him, but the news that I was about to marry another man hit him like lightning. "Ethan, don't panic," Emma said gently as she walked in, startled by his pale, broken state. "Olivia must have done this to make you jealous. She loves you, she'll come back." But Ethan's eyes were bloodshot as he turned to her, his voice shaking with fury. "Why did you steal my photos? Why did you send them to her? If it weren't for you, she never would have left me." He lunged forward, his hands gripping Emma's throat. She struggled, gasping, until he finally let go, leaving her coughing violently, clutching her chest. Tears streaked her face, but her voice was full of spite. "Wasn't it you who let me? If you didn't care about her at all, how could I have used those photos to threaten her?" Her words struck Ethan like a hammer to the chest, each syllable cutting deeper than the last. In that moment, he finally remembered everything he had done, every cruel word, every humiliation I had endured because of him. While he stood there frozen, Emma's expression twisted into something cold and venomous. She turned away, and in a corner where he couldn't see, she uploaded the stolen photos to the internet. At that same moment, the wedding between the Song and Stone families was in full swing. The ceremony was grand. Over 100 luxury cars lined up in procession, guests from every corner of high society in attendance. But then, a sudden disturbance broke out at the gates of the Song estate. "I'm Olivia Song's fiancé," a hoarse voice shouted. "Let me see her. I just need to say a few words." Ethan had taken the first flight he could find, rushing overnight to get there. His face was pale, his eyes bloodshot from exhaustion, dark circles heavy beneath them. When he shouted again, the Song family's security team moved in, slamming him to the ground before he could take another step. They didn't stop until he could no longer speak. Blood trickled down from his mouth as he struggled to look up, and standing before him was a man in a tailored black suit, a white boutonniere pinned to his chest. "Ryan." He looked down at Ethan with calm, icy disdain. "If I were you," Ryan said coldly, "I wouldn't have the face to ever show up in front of Olivia again." Ryan tossed a thick folder onto the floor in front of Ethan. The paper scattered open, covered in stamped documents and photographs, all evidence of the Cole family's years of illegal dealings. "You really thought," Ryan said coldly, his voice like ice, "that you, the spoiled young master who nearly destroyed himself over a woman, could still turn things around on your own. If it weren't for Mr. Song's compassion, for not being able to bear seeing his daughter in pain, your family would have gone bankrupt long ago." Ethan's face went pale, the color draining from it completely. Being humiliated like this by the man who had taken everything from him made him so furious he nearly vomited blood. "And that woman beside you," Ryan continued, "the one who leaked Olivia's photos online, tell her to prepare for a lawsuit." With that, Ryan gestured to the guards. "Get him out of here." They dragged Ethan to the gates and threw him into the street. He barely felt the pain. For the first time, he didn't even have the courage to rush inside the Song estate, didn't dare to face me. As for me, I knew nothing about what had happened outside. All I knew was that, today, I was standing before the world, a bride recognized by everyone. And when I looked at my groom, I saw only warmth in his eyes. That night, lying in our wedding suite, my heart was full of nervous excitement. Ryan stood a few steps away from the bed, hesitant, almost cautious, and that hesitation made my heart beat even faster. "Ryan," I asked softly, "do you not feel anything for me?" Before I could finish, his lips pressed against mine, firm, deep, and full of emotion. The question dissolved between our breaths. Passion rose, wave after wave, until finally the room fell quiet again. "What are you worrying about, my love?" he murmured, brushing his fingers through my hair. "You're irresistible to me, completely." For a moment, I wanted to tell him that Ethan had once said I was like a stone, cold, dull, unfeeling. But I didn't. The wedding night wasn't the time to bring up another man's name. And besides, Ryan's warmth had already erased the last of those shadows. The next morning, I woke in his arms. When I opened my eyes, his handsome face was right there, close enough for me to see the faint stubble on his chin. He was watching me carefully, almost nervously. And his timid expression made me want to tease him. I deliberately furrowed my brow, pretending to be upset. "Olivia," he said immediately, his voice panicked. "I didn't mean to hide things from you. I just wanted to handle everything first, to make sure those people paid for what they did before I told you. If you think I was being too ruthless, I can stop." I hadn't expected my little act to make him confess so much at once. He was always doing things quietly for me, without ever saying a word about it. The thought made tears fill my eyes. When he saw them, he grew even more flustered, like a child who had done something wrong. I couldn't help but laugh softly, then leaned in and kissed him. "Honey," I whispered against his lips, Whatever you do for me in the future, promise you'll tell me, okay? I want to know everything, every little way you love me. Don't carry it all alone. We spent the rest of that day wrapped in each other's warmth, lost in the simple bliss of being together. We didn't know that, at that very moment, the entire Cole household had fallen into chaos. Didn't Ethan say Olivia's the Song family's eldest daughter? Mrs. Cole snapped angrily. Then go find her. She's still our daughter-in-law. She should be helping us through this crisis. Her tone was full of entitlement, as if she had completely forgotten how cruelly she used to treat me. Ethan glanced at Emma, who was cowering in the corner like a frightened bird, a far cry from the manipulative woman she had been. She's the one who posted Olivia's photos online, Ethan said hoarsely. Olivia will never help us now. If looks could kill, Emma would have been dead already. But before Ethan could say more, Mrs. Cole turned on Emma and slapped her hard across the face, again and again. When our family fell on hard times, you were the first to abandon him, she shouted furiously. And now that we finally had a good daughter-in-law, you had to come back and ruin everything. You shameless, vile woman, I'll kill you. Mrs. Cole's fury only grew, her blows coming harder, wilder. Finally, Emma snapped. She dropped her act completely and lunged forward, grabbing Mrs. Cole's arm. The two women began to fight, screaming and clawing at each other, the chaos echoing through the once proud Cole household, now reduced to madness. You're one to talk, you old witch, Emma spat, her face twisted with fury. All it took was a few sweet words and you lost your head completely. Good daughter-in-law, huh? Have you already forgotten how much you used to despise Olivia? She laughed bitterly, her voice trembling. You were the one who said she was nothing but a wild pheasant, that she could never be worthy of your precious son. The shouting between Emma and Mrs. Cole grew louder and uglier as they ripped into each other, exposing every dirty secret in front of the servants. Their hair and clothes were soon disheveled and torn, the air thick with insults and chaos. Ethan watched it all in silence. He didn't move to stop them. He simply closed his eyes, the weight of everything crashing down on him. That same day, Emma was thrown out of the Cole household. But as soon as she stepped through the gates, a group of uniformed officers stopped her. Miss Emma Lewis, one of them announced, holding up a badge. You are under arrest for blackmail and the unlawful distribution of private information. Please come with us. By the time I woke up that evening, the sunlight was dimming outside the window. Ryan was still beside me. The moment he saw me stir, he quickly slipped a pillow behind my lower back and helped me sit up. How's your waist? Still sore? He asked, worry in his eyes. I shot him a mock glare, making him instantly lower his head like a guilty schoolboy. His voice dropped to a whisper. Emma's in jail. I called the police. She was the one who leaked your photos online. She got what she deserved. But don't worry, I already bought out every image before they could spread. None of them ever made it public. Ryan's tone was calm, but his expression was serious. He wasn't hiding anything from me this time. He told me everything he'd done, and for once, he looked so obedient it made me want to laugh. He continued. Also, to try and lessen her sentence, Emma turned over evidence of the Cole family's criminal activities. With that, plus the files we already have, it's enough to put every last one of them behind bars for life. But I'll still wait for your decision. I looked down at the documents in my hand, hundreds of pages of corruption, laundering, and fraud. A chill ran through me, but relief followed right after. Thank God I had walked away from that toxic family when I did. With the Coles' self-destructive greed, their downfall was inevitable. Handle it however you see fit, I said softly. I have nothing to do with the Coles anymore. At my words, Ryan finally relaxed, the tension in his shoulders easing. I knew what he had been worried about, that some part of me still cared for Ethan, but I didn't want to explain. Time would tell him the truth, that my heart held no trace of love for that man anymore. Ryan moved quickly. By the middle of our honeymoon, the headlines hit every major network. The Cole Group declares bankruptcy. Ethan and his father were both arrested. Mrs. Cole, though not directly involved, lost everything when the family's assets were seized. She was evicted from their mansion with nothing but the clothes on her back. Desperate and furious, she went looking for Emma, hoping to reclaim the expensive jewelry and gifts Ethan had once given her. But Emma refused to hand anything over. Their argument escalated at the police station and nearly turned violent. When Mrs. Cole was thrown out, she tried to go to the Song estate next, begging to see me, but the Song family's security guards stopped her at the gate and forced her to leave. Meanwhile, Ethan's so-called brothers, the same men who used to drink with him and mock me behind my back, all abandoned him the moment the scandal broke. Some even took advantage of the chaos to seize the Cole family's business contacts and clients for themselves. Ethan had hoped that at least one of them would look after his mother, but that final illusion was shattered. As for Emma, after her release on bail, she tried to contact me several times, but Ryan blocked every attempt. With no other options, she turned to one of her old benefactors, a wealthy investor she had secretly relied on during her years abroad. Back then, Emma had lived comfortably overseas, funded by a string of older men she flattered for money and gifts. When she returned to the country, she quietly cut ties with all of them, pretending to be pure and innocent, a white moonlight in Ethan's eyes. But her past had finally caught up to her. The same man who bailed her out of jail now controlled her completely. He used her to lure new business partners, parading her like a luxury toy he owned. From then on, Emma's life became a blur of shame and exhaustion, waking up in a different man's bed every morning. Sometimes it was one, sometimes it was several. And after that evening, Emma's scandals spread online, and the comments poured in like a torrent. The photos even reached Ethan in prison. That night, Ethan, driven wild by his emotions, provoked a fellow inmate and was beaten badly. The domestic storm had zero effect on Ryan and me during our honeymoon. What brought us back early was the news that I was pregnant. To celebrate, Ryan bought the little island where we'd been honeymooning, and the story made the national news and stirred up a small craze online. People gushed that a prince and princess were a perfect match. One, the heiress of a tycoon, the other from an old money family. Whichever family you were born into, you couldn't lose. Comments joked that in the next life, they wanted to be born as our child. Netizens even nicknamed our unborn child the chosen one. Ryan and I just smiled at each other. 10 months later, our daughter, watched eagerly by the whole world, was born. From the moment she could speak, I taught her that to love others, you must first love yourself. Born into a family like ours, she should never have to humiliate herself for anyone. We raised her to be confident and bright, not given to overflowing pity. When our daughter was 4, an elderly woman in shabby clothes tried to trick her, claiming to be her grandmother. The woman told a pitiful story and tried to brainwash my daughter into believing that one must never reject family for being poor. Thanks to the lessons we'd given her over the years, our daughter wasn't fooled. She hit the phone's emergency alarm at once. The old woman was caught, and we discovered she'd been staking out near our place for a long time, apparently planning to abduct our child in hopes of extorting a large ransom. She'd even tried to stir up sympathy by playing on the Songstone feud. Now she'd pay for it. As for Ethan's mother, with the Cole family ruined, she would likely spend her remaining days in disgrace. I, meanwhile, rewarded our daughter with a huge dollhouse. Watching Ryan play with our child, I smiled sweetly. Beloved by my husband and adored by a well-behaved daughter, my future felt carefree and complete.